Imagine walking into a party where you hope to meet interesting people who might become friends or collaborators. Now imagine that before anyone will speak with you, you must fill out a detailed questionnaire, score at least 65 points on their proprietary friendship qualification score, and wait for approval from three separate departments. Sounds pretty absurd, yeah? Uh, Yet, this is precisely how most organizations approach potential business relationships. We've built elaborate qualification systems that fight against how human connections naturally form and grow. We force relationships through artificial stages, score them based on arbitrary criteria, and assign layers of human filters whose primary job is to say no rather than enable value to flow. The irony is profound. In our attempt to identify the most valuable relationships, we've created systems that actively prevent natural value recognition. The very processes designed to find the right partners often push away the exact organizations we should be connecting with. Look at the rise of the sales development representative role. It exists primarily to filter potential relationships before they can reach someone who might actually create value with them. Young professionals spend their days attempting to force natural relationship development into mechanical qualification processes, creating mounting costs, both financial and human. Meanwhile, the people seeking genuine partnerships find themselves navigating obstacle courses of screening calls, qualification forms, and gated access, all before they can have a real conversation about value creation. The experience feels less like the beginning of a relationship and more like submitting an application for one. Perhaps you've seen this trap in your own organization. Sales reps focus on qualifying out rather than finding value creation opportunities, complex lead scoring systems that somehow miss your best potential partners, promising relationships that die in the qualification process, growing friction between those who create value and those who qualify opportunities, and mounting frustration from potential partners tired of being processed rather than engaged. If these patterns feel familiar, you're experiencing the qualification trap, where industrial process fights against natural human connection. Now, what if we reimagined partnership development not as a filtering process, but as a journey of mutual value creation and discovery? What if we focus not on qualifying relationships out, but on enabling value to flow naturally between organizations with aligned purpose? Today, I invite you to join me in exploring both the mounting friction created by qualification processes and the liberating potential of the value first partner approach. We'll dive deep into how the qualification trap emerges and evolves, examining its systemic impact and hidden costs. We'll uncover the deeper pattern that connects seemingly different symptoms, revealing why traditional solutions often make the problem worse. Then we'll explore the Value First Partner Manifesto, 10 principles that transform relationships from transactions to value multiplication. We'll examine practical steps for breaking free from the trap and creating the conditions for natural partnership development. Whether you're struggling with complex qualification processes or simply sensing there must be a better way to develop valuable relationships, this session will provide the insights and tools you need to begin your transformation journey. Now, let's reimagine partnership not as a filtering process, but as a journey of mutual value discovery and multiplication. Welcome to day 5 of our Value First Framework series. I'm Chris Carolan, and I'm excited to continue our exploration of how industrial age thinking creates mounting friction in our digital world and how we can transform these constraints into enabling conditions for natural value flow. As a reminder of where we've been and where we're going, we started with the AI replacement trap and value first AI on how to transform from thoughts of replacement to enabling more human capability. Then we really talked about the first leg of this current journey that we're on. Right now, we're in qualification of all these leads that we created. Uh, so we went over the leads trap and value first humans, reimagining how we think about and engage with the human beings that we want relationships with, right? And then what do we need to do to get those leads? We need to advertise. So we went over the advertising trap, value first communication, trying to shift from interruption to enablement in communication. Uh, we need something for them to sign up for. So we've created lead magnets. And we talked about the lead magnet trap and value first consent. Now, after we have all those leads, we've got to qualify them. So we're going to talk about what the qualification trap looks like in value first partner. And tomorrow we'll talk about all the relationships we need to help us build all this complexity and maintain it uh, with the managed services trap and think about maybe some value first delivery instead to create impact instead of fulfilling requirements. But today we're focused on perhaps the most pervasive trap in modern business development. That is the qualification trap and its liberating alternative, the value first partner manifesto. Now, before we dive in, I want to uh, create some definitions or share how I'm thinking about uh, defining the words qualification and partner specifically as it relates to this conversation. So, for qualification, in traditional business context, qualification refers to the process of evaluating potential relationships against predetermined criteria to determine if they deserve further investment of time and resources. It typically involves assessing factors like budget, authority, timeline, needs, and decision making capability. The intent is to filter opportunities and focus effort on those deemed most likely to result in valuable business relationships for the business, most often, not always for the customer. So for partner, uh, really wanted to focus on like lots of definitions out there right now. People starting to call customers partners uh, and partner led growth and all this stuff, right? So for the context here, a partner is any organization or individual with whom we create mutual value through collaborative relationship. This extends beyond traditional channel partners to include customers, suppliers, collaborators, and any entity where value flows in multiple directions through ongoing relationship rather than one-time transaction. True partnership involves shared purpose, mutual growth, and value multiplication rather than mere value exchange. So, with these definitions in mind, let's explore how industrial thinking about qualification creates mounting friction in developing all these partnerships, all these relationships. So, the qualification trap emerged as organizations tried to cope with the artificial complexity created by treating relationships as objects to be processed, leads, in most cases. What began as a simple need to identify promising opportunities has evolved into an elaborate ecosystem of qualification processes, roles, and technologies. Literally, an entire infrastructure devoted to this. Adding each of these, adding new layers of friction to natural relationship development. In its earliest form, qualification was simply about focus, identifying which potential relationships deserved more attention given limited resources. But as organizations scaled, this practical consideration transformed into something far more problematic: the systematic processing of human relationships through mechanical stages. The Industrial Revolution's assembly line thinking found its way into relationship development. Just as raw materials move through predetermined stages on a factory floor, potential relationships began moving through qualification processes, each stage adding artificial gates and filters that had little to do with natural value flow. This trap deepened dramatically in the digital era. Marketing automation, CRM systems, and lead scoring algorithms promise to optimize qualification through technology. Instead, they often encoded industrial thinking more deeply into our digital infrastructure, creating ever more sophisticated ways to interrupt natural relationship development. The most visible manifestation of this evolution is the rise of dedicated qualification roles: sales development representatives and business development representatives, SDRs and BDRs. These positions exist primarily to manage the friction created by our own internal processes. Young professionals spend their days attempting to force natural relationship development into mechanical qualified stages, creating mounting costs, both financial and human. Now, maybe this story can help illustrate this trap in action. Sarah recently joined a technology company as an SDR, excited to help customers solve meaningful problems. Instead, she found herself following rigid qualification scripts with potential partners who clearly wanted deeper conversation. One day, she spoke with a prospect who described a complex challenge that didn't fit the standard qualification criteria, but represented a perfect fit for their solution. When she tried to connect them with a solution expert, her manager stopped her. "They haven't met our qualification threshold yet." 3 weeks and 4 unnecessary calls later, the frustrated prospect went to a competitor who made the connection immediately. Sarah later learned this would have been their largest deal of the quarter. Now, this experience isn't unique, and it's the inevitable result of forcing natural relationship development into mechanical qualification processes. If you've ever been trapped in one of these discovery calls, you know exactly what's happening here. It's the worst feeling ever when you can't get the person on the other side of the call to go off script from their qualification questionnaire. Now, as organizations scale their qualification efforts, the costs multiply exponentially. See rising financial investments, teams pour increasing resources into growing SDR, BDR teams, complex scoring technologies, and elaborate qualification frameworks, all diverted from actual value creation. These investments create diminishing returns as qualification systems grow more complex while becoming less effective at identifying genuine value opportunities. We lengthen the relationship development cycle. Despite more resources invested in acceleration, organizations find that adding qualification layers actually slows down authentic relationship development. Potential partnerships take longer to reach value creation stages, with promising relationships often lost entirely during extended qualification processes. We see increasing complexity in qualification rules. Organizations try to fix broken processes with more sophisticated filters, Lead scoring models grow more intricate, routing rules become more convoluted, and qualification criteria multiply, all adding friction without addressing the fundamental misalignment with natural relationship development. You see mounting frustration from both buyers and sellers. The qualification experience feels increasingly mechanical and dehumanizing. Potential partners grow resistant to qualification processes they perceive as obstacles rather than enablers, while sales teams become frustrated by systems that fight against their natural ability to recognize value. And of course, a growing disconnect between qualification and value creation. The metrics that drive the process increasingly diverge from indicators of genuine partnership potential. Organizations optimize for qualification efficiency rather than relationship quality, creating artificial success measures that have little correlation with actual value creation. Beyond those very visible challenges, the qualification trap creates much deeper costs that profoundly impact organizational health. See high turnover in qualification roles. SDRs and BDRs burn out from unnatural work patterns. These positions often become revolving doors as people grow exhausted from forcing relationships into artificial stages rather than having meaningful conversations of value creation. The average tenure in these roles has dropped to less than 16 months, creating constant retraining costs and lost institutional knowledge. We see lost partnership opportunities. Genuine interest gets filtered out by mechanical processes. Many of the most valuable potential relationships never make it through qualification systems designed for standardization rather than recognizing unique value potential. Organizations rarely see the opportunities they miss, creating a dangerous blind spot in their partnership development. And of course, declining effectiveness of outreach. Qualification tactics create growing resistance among potential partners. With each new technique implemented at scale, effectiveness drops as people develop filtering mechanisms against what they perceive as mechanical qualification attempts. This creates a never ending cycle of tactics that work briefly before becoming ineffective. And lastly, the rising psychological costs for teams, almost always misunderstood and underestimated. People naturally want to build authentic relationships, and requiring them to interact in mechanical ways creates internal cognitive dissonance and moral fatigue. Teams report feeling fake or manipulative when implementing qualification processes that fight against natural human connection patterns. Now, organizations typically respond to the limitations of their qualification systems, not by questioning the paradigm itself, but by adding new layers of complexity. See more sophisticated scoring models. Companies invest increasingly in complex algorithms and data points, promising to better identify qualified opportunities. These approaches double down on the industrial premise that relationships can be accurately scored and sorted through mechanical criteria, creating even more artificial barriers to natural connection. We see expanded SDR and BDR teams. When qualification friction increases, organizations hire more people to manage the barriers they've created, treating the symptoms rather than the underlying disease. This creates growing operational costs without addressing the fundamental misalignment with the natural relationship development. See automated qualification sequences. Technology attempts to scale relationship filtering, creating the appearance of personalization while making the experience more mechanical and less human. These systems often accelerate qualification friction rather than reducing it, as potential partners quickly recognize the automated nature of the interactions. Not fooling anybody, people. Conversational marketing tools. These promise real time qualification while maintaining the fundamental premise that relationships must be processed through predetermined stages. They change the interface but maintain the industrial thinking beneath, creating more sophisticated but equally misaligned qualification processes. We also see refined ideal customer profiles. Organizations develop increasingly detailed targeting criteria, supposedly improving qualification precision while still treating potential partners as objects to be measured against static criteria rather than unique value creation opportunities to be explored. This often makes qualification more rigid rather than more effective. Now, each of these approaches attempts to perfect qualification rather than questioning whether our qualification paradigm itself is aligned with how value actually flows. So we see an obvious pattern here. This trap demonstrates how attempting to solve systemic problems with more process creates a downward spiral. See, organizations create qualification processes to manage relationship flow. These processes create friction in natural relationship development. More resources are needed to overcome this friction. Each new resource adds complexity and cost. The entire system becomes increasingly inefficient and unsustainable. Organizations respond by adding even more qualification layers. The friction between natural connection and artificial process grows. Both the organization and its potential partners experience mounting frustration. This pattern reveals the deeper truth at the heart of the qualification trap. You cannot solve relationship problems with mechanical processes. Each attempt to optimize qualification through more sophisticated filtering actually fights more aggressively against how human connections naturally form and develop. The trap persists because most organizations continue to approach relationship development through an industrial lens, seeing it as a manufacturing process to be optimized rather than a natural human phenomenon to be enabled. There could be a better way. Uh, we're going to talk about the value first alternative here. The value first partner manifesto is built on fundamental truths about how value naturally flows between organizations. Partnerships flourish through mutual purpose alignment rather than transactional exchange. When organizations discover shared meaning and complementary vision, they create foundation for sustained value multiplication that transcends mere commercial arrangements. Value multiplies exponentially when allowed to flow freely between aligned partners. Removing artificial barriers between organizations creates compound effects as ideas, capabilities, and opportunities move naturally between willing participants. Our next core belief: authentic collaboration emerges from trust and transparency rather than controlled processes. When organizations create environments of genuine openness and visibility, they enable natural formation of high value working relationships. For this core belief, ecosystems outperform isolated partnerships in creating sustainable impact. Value creation accelerates when organizations think beyond these relationships to consider how their partnerships contribute to and benefit from broader networks of connection. And our last core belief: unique contributions create more value than standardized delivery. The most powerful partnerships leverage distinct capabilities and perspectives rather than forcing conformity to predefined processes and expectations. So these beliefs manifest in 10 core principles that transform how we develop partnerships in the Value First Partner Manifesto. Number one, we will seek mutual growth, not just mutual transactions. We recognize that true partnership creates expanding possibilities. We will build relationships focused on growing collective capacity rather than merely exchanging predefined value through transactional arrangements. Number two, we will align on purpose, not just align on terms. We understand that sustainable partnerships require shared meaning. We will invest in discovering and developing common purpose rather than focusing exclusively on contractual terms and service level agreements. Number three, we will enable natural value flow, not create artificial gates. We believe value multiplies through open movement. We will design partnerships that minimize friction and barriers rather than creating rigid boundaries and access controls that restrict natural value sharing. We will foster ecosystem thinking, not just dyadic relationships. We recognize that partnerships exist within broader networks. We will cultivate relationships that strengthen entire ecosystems rather than optimizing isolated connections that may create overall fragmentation. Number five, we will build shared capability, not just shared accountability. We understand that partnership value comes through enhanced abilities. We will focus on developing collective capabilities rather than simply distributing responsibilities through rigid role definitions. Number six, we will enable transparent understanding, not protect information advantage. We believe sustainable value comes through shared insight. We will create visibility into challenges, opportunities, and contexts rather than withholding information to maintain negotiating leverage or competitive advantage. Number seven, we will navigate complexity together, not simplify to control. We recognize that real partnership thrives in embracing complexity. We will collaborate to navigate multifaceted challenges rather than imposing artificial simplification that limits innovation and adaptation. Number eight, we will nurture relationship resilience, not just enforce compliance. We understand that valuable partnerships withstand challenges. We will develop deep connections that adapt to changing circumstances rather than relying solely on contracts and penalties to enforce expected behaviors. Number nine, we will value unique contribution, not just standardized delivery. We believe partnerships thrive through diverse strengths. We will create space for distinctive capabilities to flourish rather than forcing partners into standardized processes that diminish their unique value. And number 10, we will measure shared impact, not just individual performance. We recognize that partnership value emerges collectively. We will evaluate success through our combined impact rather than isolating and optimizing separate performance metrics that may create misalignment. A quick side tangent, as like a personal experience inside of the HubSpot partner ecosystem. When people reach out, when app partners reach out, or solutions partners have reached out about, partnering in some way, conversation almost always starts with, "We'll give you 20%. if you bring us the leads, if you sell stuff for us. Um, when you're a HubSpot coach and you're consulting, like it often doesn't make sense for me in most cases to try to sell something else or to try to sell anything for that matter during the process of helping somebody out with HubSpot. So first of all, the 20% isn't going to help me or you, right? Because those are built for these sales systems, these sales metrics. But what really helps and what I always offer is collaborative content and collaborative education. Right. And if you can get on board with these value first principles, that becomes valuable for you. But if you're stuck in the transactional 20% commissions are all the incentive I need, then we can't partner. Um, and I'd say everybody out there needs to look for more partners on that side versus the other. So hopefully this is helpful to move through. Back to uh, what this looks like on the customer journey or on the partner journey. So transforming the value path now. This mindset shift fundamentally transforms how we engage with potential partners throughout their natural value journey. For our audience who's in learning mode, they're saying, I am learning. Traditional approach, we track and score early engagement to identify qualification potential. Value first approach, create accessible learning environments that enable natural discovery. So the transformation is people explore value possibilities without artificial qualification pressure, developing genuine understanding through authentic exploration and building a lot of trust in the process. For researchers, traditional approach, we implement progressive form fills to capture contact information for qualification. So MQLs or SQLs. That's what we're replacing here. Value first approach, provide comprehensive resources with transparent value paths. This now potential partners can fully understand possibilities without artificial barriers, enabling more informed value exploration. For hand raisers, they're saying, I am buying. Traditional approach, subject initial inquiries to rigorous qualification screening, discovery calls, demos without the subject matter experts present. The value first approach, connect directly with the relevant expertise based on expressed interests. Can we stop it with this layer of people on calls just answering questions? Nobody likes that process, not anybody involved. Transformation, people immediately engage with value creation possibilities rather than qualification processes, accelerating authentic connection and trust. For the heroes, our highly empowered revenue opportunities saying, okay, I'm considering these options. Traditional approach, we push for commitment through urgency creation and competitive positioning. It's the end of the quarter. Got some great deals. Instead, the value first approach, enable through value exploration through collaborative assessment. Transformation is that potential partners develop authentic conviction through comprehensive understanding rather than sales pressure. After they buy, we've got the value creator stage. They're saying, I must create value for the org. Traditionally, we implement standardized onboarding focused on contractual compliance, quick wins checklists. A value first approach, establish collaborative implementation with shared success definition. Partnerships begin with clear purpose alignment and mutual value creation, establishing foundation for sustained growth. After we do that, we can move into the adopter stage where they're saying, okay, I realize your value. Traditionally, here we're still managing relationships through account management and renewal focus. Instead, for value first, we can explore expanding value creation through deepening collaboration. The transformation partnerships naturally discover new growth opportunities through ongoing value exploration rather than formal expansion processes. For advocates, they're saying, I tell others about you. This has been awesome. Traditionally, we incentivize referrals through formal programs and rewards. For value first, we enable natural advocacy through exceptional partnership experiences. The transformation is authentic sharing emerges from genuine value realization rather than programmatic encouragement. I think we've all seen that. For champions, they're raving fans. Traditionally, we leverage high value customers for case studies and testimonials. But what if, for value first, we co create community leadership opportunities aligned with partners? Transformation here is partners become active ecosystem contributors, creating expanding value networks that multiply impact beyond bilateral relationships. This transformed approach creates fundamentally different outcomes, with partnerships developing more naturally, deeply, and sustainably. By aligning with how relationships actually form and grow, organizations create more valuable partnerships while reducing the friction, cost, and frustration of traditional qualification. Let's go over a concrete example of this transformation action. When, let's say, a technology consulting firm shifted from qualification first to value first partnership development, can replace our SDR team with a value exploration function focused on connecting potential partners directly with relevant expertise. We create open community forums where organizations could engage with their experts without qualification barriers. Or you can get your people active on LinkedIn. Develop transparent value path documentation that enabled potential partners to self-select based on alignment. And they built relationship metrics focused on value creation rather than stage progression. That's how you create more valuable partnerships with less effort and less cost. So, what does practical transformation look like? How do you know if your organization is caught in the qualification trap? Look for these indicators. Process dominance. Relationship development is managed primarily through rigid stage gates. Conversations follow prescribed qualification scripts rather than authentic exploration. Potential partners must navigate multiple checkpoints before reaching the value discussion. Teams spend more time documenting qualification than exploring value creation, and process compliance becomes more important than relationship quality. This filtering mentality develops. Teams are primarily incentivized to disqualify rather than discover value. Qualification criteria remain static regardless of unique partnership potential. Ideal customer profile becomes rigid dogma rather than evolving guidance. And success is measured by how many relationships are filtered out. Qualification hygiene is prioritized over value recognition. Of course, we see role fragmentation. Specialized positions exist primarily to manage qualification stages. Multiple handoffs occur before value creation conversations. Different teams own different parts of the relationship journey. Information loss occurs at each transition between roles. Potential partners must restart context building with each new contact, also known as answering the same damn questions over and over and over. Lastly, we have mechanical measurements. Your success metrics focus on conversion between artificial stages. Quality is defined by adherence to process rather than relationship value. Time based metrics drive behavior regardless of partnership potential. Activity volume is tracked more carefully than value creation indicators. And qualified opportunity definitions remain rigid despite evolving needs. If three or more of these patterns seem familiar, your organization is likely experiencing the mounting friction of the qualification trap. The good news is that recognition is the first step towards transformation. But this one, it's not going to be an easy one. The whole infrastructure B2B is built to include this. But what can you do? Number one, map natural value patterns. Interview your most successful existing partners about how relationships actually formed. Love these kinds of conversations with sales and other customer facing teams. Like, what actually happened to close this deal? Identify cases where valuable partnerships develop despite qualification processes. Document the natural signals that indicated genuine partnership potential. Recognize patterns in where qualification created unnecessary friction. Create visual representation of how value naturally wants to flow in your relationships. All this to say, like, have some closed one debrief conversations with your sales team, a resolution debrief conversations with your customer teams when they make customers happy. Number two, create value exploration spaces. Develop no qualification required access points to relevant expertise. Things like office hours or AMAs. Create community environments where potential partners can self-select or just start getting active on LinkedIn. It's a community that's waiting there for you. Design conversation frameworks focused on mutual value discovery. Build transparent value paths that show partnership possibilities without gates. And establish regular open forums where value creation conversations can happen naturally. Number three, it's a big one. Align team structure with value flow. Identify and reduce unnecessary handoffs in relationship development. Create shared ownership models that maintain relationship continuity. Develop cross-functional teams aligned around relationship value rather than stages. Shift resources from qualification to value creation and multiplication, and establish clear connection between relationship development and value delivery. Can make it easy for you. Just create a customer team, any customer facing individual on that team. Number four, evolve success metrics. Develop indicators that measure relationship quality rather than conversion efficiency. Create shared metrics that span traditional qualification boundaries. Track value multiplication. Things like upsell, cross-sell, uh, quicker time to value, things like that, rather than transaction progression. Measure partnership sustainability and growth over time. Recognize and reward value enablement rather than qualification compliance. And number five, build recognition capabilities. Train teams to recognize natural signals of partnership potential. Develop pattern recognition rather than criteria evaluation skills. Create rapid value exploration rather than rigid qualification capabilities. Build systems, probably with the help of AI, that support natural matching rather than forced filtering. And establish feedback loops that help teams learn from value recognition patterns. As you implement these changes, you'll inevitably encounter these common obstacles. Here's how to navigate them. But we need some qualification. This natural concern reflects fear that without artificial gates, teams will waste time on low potential relationships. You can address it by distinguishing between natural value recognition and artificial qualification, developing clear examples of how mutual self selection can be more efficient, creating graduated engagement models that allow natural discovery without requiring equal time investment, demonstrating how current qualification actually misses high potential opportunities, and showing how value exploration can be more time efficient than formal qualification. Next obstacle, our systems require stage progression. Many organizations are heavily invested in technologies that enforce artificial qualification stages. You can navigate this one by developing parallel paths that enable natural flow while gradually evolving systems. Create Creating process flexibility within existing technology constraints. Identifying some quick wins that reduce friction without requiring complete system overhaul. Building a business case for system evolution beyond based on relationship impact. And using manual workarounds strategically while developing long-term solutions. Usually those workarounds are related to the qualitative feedback you're getting from the market about how much better the process has become to work with you. Last major obstacle, we measure teams on qualification metrics. Deeply embedded measurement systems and KPIs often perpetuate the trap. Address this by creating transitional metrics that bridge between current and future approaches. Developing clear connection between relationship quality and business outcomes. Establishing pilot programs with alternative measurement approaches. Building leadership understanding of how current metrics create misaligned behavior. Demonstrating early wins with relationship focused metrics rather than qualification focused metrics. How will you know if your transformation is working? Look for some of these signs. Relationships develop without requiring artificial progression. Information moves freely between potential collaborators. Value creation conversations happen earlier in partnership development. Natural signals replace artificial scoring, engaging relationship potential. Hey, this person's really engaged on LinkedIn. How we scoring that in our system? We see less partnerships lost due to qualification barriers. And the value alignment becomes visible earlier in relationship development. And just our relationship quality improvement happens. So we see partnerships demonstrate greater resilience during challenges because we have more trust. Collaborative problem solving replaces contractual enforcement. Value creation expands beyond initial expectations. Relationships develop deeper purpose alignment over time, and partners report more authentic and productive engagement. This transformation connects directly to the core value first principles we've explored throughout this series. Just as we've seen how artificial constraints in AI implementation, human engagement, and content sharing create mounting friction, qualification processes represent another manifestation of industrial thinking fighting against natural value flow. The Value First Partner Manifesto builds on the Value First Humans focus on authentic connection, extends the Value First Communications emphasis on enabling understanding, and complements the Value First Contents approach to making value freely shareable. By the way, nothing easier than scaling content by having a bunch of partners that help co create content with you. Today, we've explored the qualification trap and how it creates mounting friction in partnership development, and how the value first partner approach offers a transformative alternative. We've seen that traditional qualification processes fight against how relationships naturally form and develop. This creates mounting costs, both financial and human. The trap deepens as organizations try to solve relationship problems with mechanical processes. The value first approach aligns with natural value flow, creating more valuable partnerships with less friction. And transformation begins with recognition and evolves through practical steps that enable natural connection. So, the key insight: partnerships don't need to be qualified, they need to be recognized. And recognition happens through authentic connection, not mechanical processing. So, here are some specific actions you can take starting today. Just examine your current process, map your current qualification process from first touch to partnership formation. Identify every point where artificial stages might be creating unnecessary friction in natural relationship development. Interview recent partners. Talk to your most successful recent partners about their experience, what was valuable about your partnership development process, what created frustration, what would have made it easier to discover mutual value. Number three, create one qualification free access point. Develop at least one way potential partners can engage with relevant expertise without going through formal qualification. This could be as simple as weekly open office hours or a community forum where questions can be asked freely. Number four, review your measurement system. Look at how you currently measure relationship development success. Are you tracking qualification efficiency or relationship quality? Begin developing at least one metric that focuses on value creation rather than stage progression. And number five, just start one conversation differently. In your very next potential partnership conversation, try a different approach. Instead of following a qualification script, focus exclusively on exploring mutual value creation and see how this changes the quality and depth of the interaction. Tomorrow, we'll continue our journey by exploring the managed services trap and the value first delivery manifesto. We'll examine how complexity breeds dependency and how we can create transformative impact rather than just fulfilling requirements. This builds directly on today's insights. Just as the qualification trap creates artificial barriers to initial relationship formation, the managed services trap creates mounting friction in how we deliver value within those relationships. Both represent industrial thinking encoded into digital systems, and both require fundamental transformation rather than incremental improvement. I invite you to share your experiences with qualification processes in the comments. Where have you seen this trap in action? What strategies have you used to enable more natural partnership development? Your insights will help others recognize and transform their own approaches. I want to thank you for joining me in this exploration. I look forward to continuing our journey tomorrow as we build a comprehensive understanding of how to enable natural value flow in a world of artificial constraints. Have a great day, everybody.